Okay, so usually I would do the long ass generic YouTuber intro. What is a narrative? According to the dictionary, a narrative is defined as a representation of a particular situation or process in such a way as to reflect and yada 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 yada. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel like doing all that. We all know what a narrative is. To put it in simple terms, or at least in the context of what this video is about, it's essentially carefully crafted agenda pushing, twisting things to suit an idea that isn't exactly accurate, but with the right tweaks and manipulation, is believable to anyone that doesn't take the time to actually check for themselves or use common sense. Unfortunately, narratives are probably the most powerful thing in football right now, at least when it comes to things like awards and the amount of respect certain players get. There's a few players this video is going to be centered around. Erling Haaland, Jude Bellingham, and Darwin Nunez are the main ones. Haaland is probably the most head-scratching one. I just know he wishes he was born in literally any other generation, because the respect he'd get if he was an early 2000s player is insane. Instead, he received the tap-in merchant label, probably one of my least favorite terms in football because of how ridiculously silly it is. It picked up steam during his first season for City, and once it stuck, it never went away. The quote-unquote narrative was basically that Haaland wasn't all that great, and he only has a high scoring tally because he gets elite service from City's super team and pokes in a couple tap-ins every game. I cannot stress enough how fucking idiotic this is. Do y'all think Haaland is the first player in the history of the sport to have good passers supporting him? Scoring is not as simple as standing around and sweeping a ball in. You have to have good position and excellent awareness and reflexes, elite movement, elite strength, elite speed and athleticism to score anywhere near as often as Haaland does. Half the goals Haaland scores are goals that only him and a few other top strikers in the world can score. There's a reason not everybody's doing it. You can't credit his teammates at City when he was also doing this at Dortmund. I brought this point up before somewhere, I don't remember when, but I do want to reiterate it now. Haaland has had just as much of a positive impact on KDB's career as KDB has had on his. Everybody points to Haaland having his best season as soon as he moved to City as if KDB also didn't benefit. He had his career high in assists in all competitions, and we're going to act like having a 6'4", highly intelligent fucking monster in the box wasn't the main reason. It's my least favorite modern narrative because everybody complains about players falling off while actively disparaging historically good players right in front of our face. Ruud van Nistelrooy, one of the greatest strikers ever, had one goal outside of the box for United. One out of 150. Instead of being criticized for being a tap-in merchant, though, he's praised for being an elite poacher with all-time great instincts. There's always certain buzzwords that ring alarm bells when somebody's being disingenuous. Tap-in merchant and poacher really don't have much of a difference, but the connotation around the word paint vastly different narratives and has a big impact on the player's legacy. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I'm personally someone who's never been a fan of how much leeway older players get compared to modern players for doing the exact same things. And this conversation is a huge example of that. Raul, Inzaghi, so many all-time greats who I'm not discrediting at all, by the way. However, I just want the same logic to be applied to modern players. Why do we unfairly downplay our own generation? Now, to be fair, there are criticisms of Haaland to be made. There's been numerous occasions where when Haaland isn't scoring, he has no impact on the game at all and is basically completely removed from the picture. However, if you watch him at Dortmund, you see that this isn't really the issue with him as a player. It's more so another Pep thing. Not as drastic as what he did to Grealish, transforming him from an explosive one-on-one monster to a safety net winger, but you can see very clear differences in Haaland's overall game, despite the fact that he's currently the best poacher in the world along with Harry Kane. The idea that a high goal scorer should have all bangers and crazy goals is crazy. Not everybody's going to have a goal catalog like Suarez. As a matter of fact, nobody's going to have a goal catalog like Suarez. I'm going to repeat it like I do damn near every video, and I know y'all are tired of hearing it, but leave them goddamn highlight comps alone. They're poisoning your brain. You look back at almost any elite striker season before the golden generation, and I promise it was like 15 tap-ins, 2 penalties, and a couple bangers here or there. Y'all are letting the occasional freak goals from over the course of a legendary player's entire career fool you into thinking they were just scoring bangers. A striker's job is to finish chances. A striker that finishes easy chances consistently is a good striker. The day the tap-in merchant narrative dies, I'm going to celebrate like Benzema at a middle school graduation. Even attacking midfielders are getting slapped with a tap-in merchant narrative. We had a 20-year-old central midfielder that was forced to basically play as a box-crashing attacking midfielder / second striker because his team didn't want to rely on fucking Joselu, and he not only perfectly adapted to the role, but was damn near the most elite finisher in the world for half a season, and he got attacked. Are we not seeing how like insane this mindset is? Either score 20 bangers a season while also being elite at every aspect of the game, everywhere on the pitch, or you're fucking garbage. How do people even enjoy watching football sometimes, bro? And I say all this because narratives are the most powerful thing in the sport. Bellingham was widely praised and loved by everyone, but as soon as the narrative started going around that he was a locker room cancer and egotistical, his every move started being microanalyzed. It took off, and then people became body language experts and started crafting their own stories to suit the narrative. We've seen narratives work in players' favor too, don't get me wrong. Narratives have won players awards in the past, actually. We can point at Modric in 2018 for that one. Yes, I'm one of the people that don't exactly think he completely deserved that award. It's not the craziest robbery in the world, and he had a solid case. But no, the lone midfielder carrying the small nation past powerhouses and all the way to a World Cup final against all odds was the perfect narrative for a Ballon d'Or. I personally feel like it's greatly exaggerated how much carrying Modric actually did. Again, yes, he was clearly the best performer. However, everybody acts like Croatia was just a make-a-wish team besides him, and that's simply not true. Brozovic, brilliant that tournament. Rakitic, outstanding. Perisic, fantastic. They actually had a very sturdy lineup, even on paper, but the basis of his case for the Ballon d'Or was, look at this little guy taking his tiny nation full of petroleum producers to a World Cup final. I do feel like the narrative was intriguing to a lot of people, and it caught on very well, so by default, his teammates from that tournament were heavily downplayed and disrespected. I don't know, if you couldn't tell by now, it really grinds my gears when people don't get enough credit for the shit they do. So many narratives in the sport, and in sports in general, are centered around disparaging and talking down on players. I won't lie, I get my licks in there sometimes too. I love me some Anthony slander. Best believe I'ma always find time to fry his ass. But when somebody that's actually tough gets a shitty narrative attached to them that destroys their overall perception, it's kind of sad, I'm not gonna lie. Because once a narrative sticks, shaking it off is the hardest thing on the planet. Every narrative has at least a little bit of truth in it, which is why so many narratives stick around for so long. Confirmation bias keeps them alive. It's true that Trent was a really bad defender at one point, but he's improved a lot over the years. However, he's still an average defender, and his occasional mistake every now and then just reignites the awful defender takes that are outdated, but keep coming back up because people who push that narrative take every error as confirmation of their agenda. Even I'm a perpetrator of that. A little while ago, I said Trent can't defend in my video about world-class players. Obviously, I was being hyperbolic. Trent isn't horrible back there anymore, but I knew nobody would get on my ass if I made a joke about his defending, because a lot of people actually believe he's still a garbage defender. Y'all feel what I'm saying? Saliba and Gabriel have been seen as Batman and Robin since they became a center-back partnership. The narrative was always that Saliba was the Rolls Royce and Gabriel was good, but not really on his level or close. Some Arsenal fans even wanted him sold at the start of last season, and he was benched early on in the year. If I was to say right now that Gabriel's 2023 to 2024 season was at the very least equal to Saliba's and arguably more consistent, I feel like many other Arsenal fans would agree with me. Outside of the fan base, though, people will look at you crazy just because that's not what the general narrative is. Plenty of Liverpool fans will tell you that Darwin Núñez is a great player, and a lot of people will laugh and point at his missed chances when he's actually a very prolific player. Unfortunately, he got the donkey narrative attached to his name early on, and due to his questionable finishing and decision-making, it isn't going anywhere. It's not completely impossible to shake off a narrative. Griezmann managed to do it after the Barcelona flop. Giroud somehow made everybody forget how remedial he was at Arsenal. It's very, very difficult, though, and most players are stuck with narratives that were attached to them early on for their entire career. At the end of the day, narratives are something that comes with almost everything, to be honest, especially sports. Most people can't catch every game, especially with clubs that aren't their own. In a sport like football that relies heavily on watching games yourself, it's easy to manipulate public opinion with things that are inaccurate or not 100% true. All I say is, it's always better to see things for yourself. Don't just listen to whatever the popular opinion is. A lot of people have agendas. That's not me saying to be a contrarian and argue for the sake of being different, but definitely don't run with whatever you see a lot of people saying.